Emeritus Professor Jacquie Rand graduated from Melbourne University in 1975 and worked in veterinary practice for 8 years before doing a residency and a doctorate at the Ontario Veterinary College in Canada, followed by 3 years as a senior registrar at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. She was appointed Professor of Companion Animal Health at UQ in 2001 and retired at the end of 2015 to head the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation, which is dedicated to saving pets' lives through research, education, and advocacy. She has published over 112 journal articles, authored 42 book chapters, and is editor of 3 books. Currently, she's involved in research programs in shelter medicine aimed at preventing unwanted and problem pets, as well as ongoing research in diabetes and obesity. Thank you.
Good. So, I'd just like to acknowledge Liyan Hunag. She did this for her 5th year research elective in her last year at vet school, which is a very stressful year. And I'd like to acknowledge the research team, Marcia Corradini, who was her main supervisor, John Morton, who is an epidemiologist par excellence, one of the best in the world, I think, and the team that collaborated with us from Missing Pet Partnership. And it was truly an international collaboration with Missing Pet Partnership, the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation, and the University of Queensland. So, 15% of pet owners or cat owners lose their cat at least once in a 5-year period, and 30% of them get lost in the cat's lifetime. And it's a common belief that lost dogs are sought, but cats just come home. However, many are not reunited, as you know, with the owner. And we've looked at reclaim rates in Australia, and they average about 4%. In the US, they're reported to be about 2%, compared with what's reported for dogs of about 26 to 40%. And sadly, as you're aware, a common outcome for missing cats in shelters is euthanasia. And there's actually minimal literature out there on effective search methods and the likely locations where missing cats are found. And so the aim of this study was to report search methods used to find missing cats, methods most often associated with locating missing cats, the location and distance travelled by the missing cats that were found. And we used a retrospective cross-sectional study of cat owners who'd lost their cat. We collected the data online using SurveyMonkey, and it consisted of 47 questions with different answer formats. And the questions related to the signalment of the cat, that is, we talk about the cat's age, sex, desex status, and personality, the background history of the cat, how it went missing, search methods used, and the circumstances if and when the cat was found. So, what were the results? Well, our survey included data from 1,210 missing cats. Most of the respondents, or most of the missing cats, were in USA, but 1 in 5 were from Australia, and some were for Canada, and there were a scattering around the rest of the world. And these respondents who answered our questionnaire were strongly bonded with their cat, and nearly 90% strongly agreed with the statement they're attached to their missing cat, and they regarded it as a family member. Of the cats, a few more were male compared to female. Nearly all were neutered. Over half were acquired from either a shelter or rescue, or from a family acquaintance. And approximately half were microchipped. Most of the cats that went missing lived in a house, townhouse, or condominium with a yard. Many were indoor-outdoor cats, and interestingly, 44% of all the cats in the study that went missing were allowed outside unsupervised, despite these people being very, very attached to their cat. And even more interestingly, 28% of missing cats were indoor only and never went outside. So at the time the cat went missing, it was in a residential area rather than rural, in a house or apartment with access to a yard. or backyard as we call it, in a familiar location. Of the cats that were in unfamiliar locations when they got lost, and that was only 5% of the cats, most escaped after moving into a new house or from a friend or pet sitter's home. And of those that escaped while being transported, the majority escaped from the carrier. Some of those cats were actually, the car was involved in a car accident. So, of the cats that if they were outdoor, most of them just disappeared or escaped while unsupervised. If they were indoors, they escaped through an open door or garage where it was known. And of all the missing cats, those 1,200 cats, only 64% were found alive and 2% were found dead. The rest were never found by the time of the survey. And if we looked at the time that the cat was lost until it was found, 83% were found within 30 days. And 93% were found within 10 days. Sorry, have I got 10 minutes or? Okay, so I'm only 5 minutes into the talk. Okay, I'm getting confused. 93% of the cats were found within the 90 days. And if you looked at that early period more closely, 50% of the cats were found alive, were found by day 5. When we looked at the distance travelled, 50% of the cats were found within 50 metres of their escape point. Now, the average house is about, I think, 12, 15 metre frontage here in Australia, bigger ones at 20, I think. So that's, 2 to 3 house blocks from their point of escape. 75% were found within 500 metres of their escape point, and only a few, 9%, of cats travelled further than 2 kilometres. And we didn't differentiate between those that likely travelled under their own power and those that were transported and found elsewhere. And of the cats that were found dead, they travelled further than the alive cats, and the average median distance that they were found was 400 metres compared to 50 metres. And outdoor cats and outdoor-only cats travelled further than indoor-only cats. And so you can see that if they are indoor-only cats, the median distance, so when we talk about median, that's half the cats had only travelled 40 metres, and they were found within, again, a few houses. Whereas those that were outdoor or outdoor-only travelled a median of 300 metres. So half of them travelled 300 metres, half of them travelled more than that. And if you looked at the circumstances in which the cats were found, 83% were found outside, 11% were found inside someone else's house, 4% were found inside their own home, and only 2% were found inside a public building, and then it largely was a shelter or a pound. And that's, it's interesting that so few of them were actually found in a shelter or pound. And we classified cats based on personality, and so the groups of cats, we had a curious clown cat, which I own one of those. They're friendly, fearless cats, but they get into trouble. And I'm sure one day he's going to be carted off by the Australia Post delivery van when they open the sliding door and he jumps in. Aloof cats, they sit and watch and rarely interact. The cautious cat that's friendly but shy and hides from strangers. And the timid, fearful cat that's afraid and hides from people and flees at loud noises. And the owners were able to, they were asked to classify their cat on a 5-point score, that this description of their cat strongly fitted the cat or did not fit the cat. And personality had no relation to where the cat was found, except for the highly curious cats. And guess where they were found? Well, curiosity didn't kill the cat. 18%, so nearly 1 in 5 cats that were considered very curious, so they had a score of 5 out of 5, were found inside someone else's house. And in fact, the chance of being found inside someone else's house, rather than being found somewhere else, increased as the cat curiosity score increased. And so you can see here how the score, I'm not sure, is increasing as their score out of 5 out of 5 increased. So the most common search methods used: physical searches of the area, advertising, including flyers and posters, and contacting a shelter, municipal pound, but fewer visited them. For cats found alive, of the respondents that used the search method, the 2 methods that they said helped them the most was distributing missing cat flyers, 82% rated that as one of the 2 most helpful, giant neon posters, humane traps, pet detective or lost pet services. You can see the numbers that used them are fairly small, but they rated them very highly in terms of helping them find their missing cat. And again, of respondents that used the search method, a physical search was rated by 68% as most helpful, contacting the local vet, visiting a shelter, and calling the shelter. And those that used an animal communicator or a pet psychic to tell them where their cat was, although the numbers were small, 6 out of 10 rated it as one of the 2 most helpful methods. Of cats that were found, 52% had a microchip. Of cats that were not found, 46% had a microchip. And in fact, having a microchip was not associated with the cat being found. But if you realise that most cats were found outside and close to the home, it's not surprising that a microchip wasn't helpful in these cats in getting them home, because they never went to a shelter or vet or pound. They didn't get that far. Of course, limitations of the study were the recall errors of the people who had lost their cats. We didn't do much analysis for the cats that were found dead or asked many of the questions. And respondents were highly bonded with their cat, and they weren't representative necessarily of all owners of missing cats. But some of the key findings from this study is that cats don't travel far. Half are within 50-metre radius where they escaped, 3/4 within 500 metres. But it varies with the outdoor experience, and 3/4 of those that were found, if they were indoor cat, were found within 140 metres, versus 1,600 metres, 3/4 were found if they had outdoor access. And so it's really critical that you tailor the distance of the physical search to the outdoor experience of the cat, and use physical search, flyers and posters, and it should be the core tenet of any missing cat search strategy. And if the history is that the cat was an indoor-only cat and the owner had no idea, it wasn't observed to leave through a window or door, you need to advise them to really search all the house, cupboards that are rarely opened, rooms that are rarely opened. Did someone go into them and inadvertently shut the cat in? Curious cats are likelier to be found in someone else's house compared to other personality types. Microchip didn't increase recovery, but we said that less than 2% of cats were found in a shelter and most were found close to home. However, many said that calling a shelter or visiting them was one of the most 2 helpful methods. And that's likely because the advice on search methods, such as posters, searching neighbours' house and their house, was given. And for example, when my elderly Burmese went missing, he was quite sick, I called the RSPCA and they sent me a template of a flyer, and I put it in neighbours' yards, and within a day, a neighbour across the road who held an elderly mother who never went outside, she'd found the cat and she was feeding it. And so I got him back very quickly doing that. And he would have likely have died if we hadn't, he wasn't going to last long without medication. So half the cats will be found within 7 days. Cats that are missing for 2 months are unlikely to be recovered. So the outcomes of this study, I think they have informed searchers to improve return rates of lost cats, but also it provides a rationale for returning cats to location that are in shelter, neuter and return programs. And when we talk about shelter, neuter and return programs, they're the programs where usually that members of the general public, well-meaning, have found a stray cat and bring it to you. You know there's a chance, there's a small chance that it's going to be reclaimed by the original owner. If it's in good condition, it's got a home where it was found, close to where it was found. It's likely being fed by either someone who perceives they own it or someone who doesn't perceive they own it but provides care. And so the best thing you can do for those cats is to de-sex them and put them back exactly where they were found. So I had questions, but I understand that questions are afterwards, so that's fine.